talking about Jesus being not a person, but
a symbol.
But a symbol
of
right?
Intellectual enlightenment.
Right. Okay. And how is it that it's saying in the Bible that He resurrected the dead, and also that He made people walk and so forth, let people see, and all this?
Yeah. This is what the spirit of intellectual, spiritual enlightenment accomplishes. The spirit of intellectual, spiritual, and intellectual enlightenment does help people to see things. People say, "Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, I see." Now, it doesn't mean you were blind. It just means now it's opened up your eyes to understand a particular concept you didn't know before. So consequently, God's Son has now healed you from your blindness so that now you see. And before, you didn't know what to say. You don't know how to answer anybody. But now you have the answer, so now He has taught you to speak when you were dumb. So the whole concept of the Son giving you life, resurrection, the resurrection also can go all the way back to reincarnation.
Yeah, but you're saying you're starting saying that He's not a person.
Yeah.
You're saying that basically He's just, like you're saying, the light,
yeah. The intellectual, spiritual enlightenment.
Right. And if the Bible says that He's walking on the land, okay.
Yeah, the Bible also said He walked on water, and it does. You go out at 6 o'clock in the evening, watch the sun go down on the Pacific, it walks on water. So the sun walks on water.
True. But then again, also, if He is the Son of the Almighty, He could do many things, you know what I'm saying?
Well, He does.
That's true.
He brings life into the world. He heats up the world. He's the essence of the Father. The Bible says that when you see God's Son, you've seen the Father. Why? Because the Son represents all of the qualities that we associate with God. First of all, He's our protector. He's our enlightener. He enlightens us. He feeds us and gives us life, which is energy. He brings warmth into our life. He does all these wonderful things for us.
So you're saying He can't be a man?
Now, I'm not saying He can't be a man. I'm just saying that the story itself is called Astro-Theology.
Right.
And has been told by 15 other major cultures in the world before Christianity. There are 15 cultures in the world that have had, let me show you something. In Rome, from about the 3rd century BC to 1 AD, that 300-year period before Jesus would have been born, that year that Jesus would have been born would have been 1 AD. But for 300 years before Jesus would have been born, in the Roman Empire, there was a religion that dominated the Roman Empire. It was called Mithraism. Go to the encyclopedia and look up Mithra. Mithraism was the religion of the Roman Empire until Christianity. And in Mithraism, Mithra was called God's Son, the light of the world. He had 12 helpers or 12 followers. His mother was a virgin. He died on the cross for men's sins. His father was a carpenter. He raised the sick, and he healed the sick and raised the dead. They celebrated his birthday. Mithraism celebrates the birthday of God's Son on December 25th. They celebrated his coming back to life on the first week of spring. The entire Christian story was already in Rome for 300 years before Jesus would have been born. It was called Mithraism. But that's not the only place. You can go back to the Hindus. You can go back to Egypt and the sun worship there. The same identical thing. Horus was born of a virgin. His father was a carpenter. He ultimately died for the sins of mankind. So I'm just saying there were 15 other major civilizations in the world that had the identical same story.
Right, but then again, okay, there's a lapse between like the age that he was 18 or something to the age of 32.
Yeah, that's a very interesting,
okay.
yeah.
that he was missing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now
that's called the missing years of Jesus. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now
and the rabbis will tell you. And the rabbis, when you talk to them, they will tell you.
Yeah. He could have been going around the world at that point. Okay.
Of course.
Now, okay. Another thing is that I wanted to ask you, without any doubt whatsoever, with giving, I mean, any kind of doubt, you're absolutely positive that there was no Jesus Christ.
Oh, no, I never said that.
No, that's what I'm saying.
No, let me answer that. Okay, that's a good question. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying there was no man named Jesus, because I wasn't there. That's about 2,000 years ago, and I wasn't there.
No, I thought you were saying. I thought you were saying that it was the sun. I mean, the actual sun up in the sky, and there was.
No, all right, let me clarify my position on this.
Okay.
First of all, I'm not an atheist, as I said before. I have the highest of respect and admiration for spiritual things. I believe myself to be a spiritual man because I live every day studying spiritual subjects because I love the Spirit. However, I am not saying that Jesus as a man did not exist because I wasn't there 2,000 years ago. It would be ludicrous to say anything like that. What I am saying is that the story, whether the man actually lived or not, is in point of fact irrelevant to the story. What is relevant is that the story of the New Testament is trying to tell you something, is trying to educate you, is trying to tell you that the bottom line in religion is the same as it has always been. There's nothing new under the sun. The bottom line on the Bible is quite simply the war between intellectual, spiritual enlightenment and human darkness and ignorance. That's the war that's going on. So I'm saying that there were 16, including Christianity, 16 major cultures of the world had the same identical story, which is called Astro-Theology, with all of those little stories, that I went through. Now, whether there was an actual man named Jesus or not, I don't know. I wasn't there. But what I do know from 43 years of studying this one subject is that there were 15 other cultures that had the same identical story. Now, let me throw this in real quick. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were found in 1948, and 1947, 1 year before the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, there was another set of scrolls found that very few people know about. They're called the Nag Hammadi, N-A-G, Nag Hammadi manuscripts. The Nag Hammadi manuscripts were found in Egypt, in a little town called Nag Hammadi. And today, there are huge reference books in the big bookstores. Go in there and ask for the books on the Nag Hammadi manuscripts, and you will find that 1 year before the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, in the Qumran community, which is up in what we call the Holy Land, in Egypt, in a little town called Nag Hammadi, a huge group of manuscripts were found. And in those manuscripts, they know by the writings and by all the surrounding evidence that those Nag Hammadi manuscripts were at least 200 years before Jesus would have been born. And it was in Egypt, not the Holy Land. And the Nag Hammadi manuscripts, 200 years before Jesus would have been born, talks about Jesus. He walked the earth, he did this, he healed the sick, he raised the dead, he was this, he was that, and it has all these strange stories about Jesus as a child. And it says, while the children were playing in the street and the birds were flying, Jesus cursed the birds and they all fell down. And then all the children cried. And they said, oh, okay, all right. So he blessed the birds and then they all got up and flew away again. And there's all kinds of stories about Jesus did this and Jesus said that and Jesus went over here and did this and that. We're talking about in Egypt, Nag